Hello, Steve White, Trickboy89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, it's William Shatner's birthday. He turns 90. I thought I'd have to do a little tribute or something because he is, Captain Kirk and everything. I could talk about his life and his career and everything, but other people are doing actual documentaries and stuff like that. But, he was born in 1931. He basically started acting when he was 21. I think 21? No, 20. In 1951. And he started off in theatre, he went into TV. He had a lot of small roles. He was well received in some of them, but he never really had success, and he probably one criticism was that he took any job and it hurt his career. And it wasn't really till he got the role of Captain Kirk that he really got any success. But then he was typecast as Kirk and had a lot of trouble finding work in the 70s. But then eventually Kirk came back in the 79 film, and he got TJ Hooker in the 80s, and then he did Rescue 911 in 89. TJ Hooker was only for 4 years, 82 to 86, I think. After he directed Star Trek 5, he did Rescue 911, which was from 89 to, I think, 96. And then, of course, he did Denny Crane from 2004 to 2008, he got 2 Emmys for that. I think he got an Emmy for Rescue 911 because I think he produced it as well, but it got Best Show. He didn't get Best presenter or actor or anything. So he's had a fairly consistent career as a working actor, but he's got a really bad reputation as a person. It's very easy to talk about him as a TV icon and a legend. The role of Captain Kirk, the role of Denny Crane. God, Denny Crane. He was great as Denny Crane because he was basically playing himself. And that's the scary part. That's kind of what he's like, because that was written by someone who'd seen him in interviews and just, they ended up casting him. But I thought to do my little tribute, I would just focus on my experience meeting William Shatner in person. So I know he came to Australia in the 80s, and I know he flew over Tasmania, where I lived. And I know there was a light plane that buzzed our town when I was a kid, and I often wonder if that was William Shatner, because I can imagine him doing that, because he probably wouldn't have known where he was supposed to fly, or probably wouldn't have cared because he's William Shatner. And the guy was coming really low over the houses and that, and I often wonder if that was him. I've always wanted to ask him, but I doubt he'd remember. I kind of could work out the year, and it seemed to be the same year he was visiting, and I know he flew roughly over the area, I think. So I've always wondered about that, but didn't get a chance to ask him about that. But the first time I met him, because that doesn't count, I waved as the plane went over, but I don't think that counts as meeting William Shatner. I'd heard a lot of bad things about him. From the notorious Get a Life statement sketch on Saturday Night Live, where he basically said Star Trek fans are losers and to Get a Life is just a TV show, which basically shows how much he actually understood Star Trek, because he didn't really understand or appreciate Star Trek. And he admits this, don't come for me. He admits this in his documentary about the captains, or I think it was called The Captains. He admits he didn't get it for a long time. It took him decades to get it, and I think that's why he did that documentary, because he actually started to get it, and then it became interesting to him. So he had a really bad reputation for being bad to fans, and I didn't have any interest in meeting him. I'd already met Nichelle Nichols and Walter, and I think I'd met George at that point, and all the Next Generation cast except like Whoopi Goldberg, and I've met most of the cast, basically. Most of the cast, the living cast. Obviously, I didn't meet DeForest Kelley or Nimoy, although I kind of said hello to him on a web thing with a bunch of other fans. I didn't actually get to speak to him separately, which sucks. But I did get an autograph, because he autographed autographs for the club that sort of had a online convention with him, where he came online and talked to us and answered questions and that, but he couldn't come to Australia because of his health. He couldn't fly. So basically, Shatner came and did an event where it was like a night with William Shatner, because he'd done conventions and I didn't go because I didn't want to meet him as a person, because I'd heard nothing good about him as a person. And then he was doing this show, and it was like, a night with William Shatner, evening with William Shatner. I thought, well, that'll be good. I can see him live in person and see him like performing and not actually have to interact with him as a person, because I have heard nothing good about him as a person. So I didn't go to the convention, and then I went to the event because I think they were around the same time as when he was in Australia. I don't think they were different visits. I think they were the same one. And then years later, there was a convention I was going to for some other actors, and he was there, and I thought, ugh, you've got everyone else's signature. I've even got Nimoy and DeForest Kelly's, although I didn't get them off them personally. I thought, I've got like my little signature. I've got a little collection of Star Trek signatures from most of the actors, because I've met most of them. And I thought, oh, just get it, just meet him. So I went, I got in the line, I bought the thing, I got in the line. And the person before me was a girl, and she wasn't that attractive. She was kind of heavy, but she had, a nice chest, and he was paying her some attention. When she left, his head went down. He never looked up again. I put the photograph on the table. He already had my name. He started signing, and I said, hello, Mr. Shatner, because he didn't look up when I gave him the photo or anything. He didn't look up when I said hello. And then he just sort of handed it back to me and didn't even look up. And I'm like, you're exactly what I heard. You're exactly what I heard you were. So I said to him, you really should fire that photographer. And he looked up and said, what? I said, you really should fire that photographer. You look so much better in person. And I walked off, leaving him confused and thinking what I meant by that. Because he'd already done a couple of sessions of photos with fans, and he looked like a big bloated pink Jabba the Hutt. He did not look good. He did actually look better in person. But the photograph, they brought up the colours, the magenta was too strong, and he was red-faced, because he is if you meet him in person. Without the makeup, he's really red-faced. And I got in his head, and that's what I meant to do, because I was really offended, because he was paying plenty of attention to this girl with boobs, but when I came, he just put his head down, didn't even look up. And that was just incredibly offensive. I paid for an autograph just as much as her. And yeah, I got the autograph, but when you get the autograph, you expect the person to actually look up and maybe say hello, maybe even answer a question or have a brief moment of conversation. You're getting the autograph sort of to acknowledge that you met the person, you had an interaction with the person. You're not just buying the autograph. You can just go buy it off a rack which has been signed for anyone. So I was pretty offended. And I said that deliberately to get in his head, and it was just such a lucky little moment where afterwards the photograph stalls were like upstairs in this giant, at the exhibition centre, I think. No, it was the museum, the centre of the museum. It's this huge place with it's like a giant mall, but it's hard to explain. But there's this upstairs area where the photograph section was. And there were these two long sort of runway sort of balcony sections on either side of a big open sort of thing you could look down. And they're sort of running people backwards and forwards, but because there were no stalls or anything, just nothing. And I was walking across to get a photograph or to pick up something. I think I got a photograph with someone else. I don't know. I was walking across, and as I was walking across, Willam Shatner and his people, his entourage, was walking across this way. And he saw me, and he looked at me, and he gave me this look. And I'm like, you remember me? I got in your head, didn't I? When you were taking your photos, you remember what I said. You looked at your photos, and you realised how bad you looked. I was very proud of that, because he gave me this real evil look. And like, well, you treated me like crap. I got bitchy back, and it was a nice little moment for me. So that's my tribute to Willam Shatner. He's an asshole. In person, yes, he's a great actor. He co-created a great character in Captain Kirk, and he inspired a great character in Denny Crane. He works hard. He works tirelessly. He does not stop. His energy is amazing. I will give him that. But he's a horrible person. Anyone who worked with him, especially before he started getting feedback from the Star Trek actors that he was horrible, before he realised he wasn't popular with his fans. He didn't know this. He's so narcissistic and self-involved. He didn't even know any of this until he went to write his memoirs, and he went to speak to people, and they had him because he wanted to speak to them. It was the first time he'd wanted to speak to them and acknowledge some of them even existed barely. And they said, you know what? I think Michelle said, basically, you know what, Bill? I'm going to use this opportunity to tell you what I really think. And they all told him what they really think. And not all of it was printed. But they did do interviews with him, I think, except for James Doohan. I don't think James Doohan was interviewed by him for the books. I can't remember. I've got them both on my shelf. I read them both, but it was like in 1994. So I can't remember. But, he just... It was all about him. He made the Captain Kirk character is so important. He took lines from other actors because he felt, well, the captain should say that because he's the hero. And that a lot of the people in the cast quietly hated him, and he didn't even know it. And especially George Takei, he took a few lines from him all the time, and he also did the same. He didn't even know George's name. So that just says the kind of person he is. And I'd heard that about him, and it wasn't wrong, and I had a horrible experience with him, but I kind of saw it coming, and I had my little comeback at him, and I gave it to him, and I got in his head, and enough that he remembered me and gave me a filthy look. Yeah, and I think he wore makeup the next time I saw him in pictures, probably. I don't know, am I imagining that? Because he did another thing not long after that. Maybe I'm just projecting. Maybe I wish that happened. Maybe I'm not that powerful. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about him. I respect him as an actor, I do. I respect him as a performer, but as a person, I mean, it's harsh, but I can understand why his first wife killed herself, because how could he have been any use to her and supported her through any problems when he was so narcissistic? And I saw the interviews afterwards, and he was just clueless, and I'm like, I'm sure he really was. No, it wasn't his first wife. His first wife he cheated on, and she left him, I think, during Star Trek or just after Star Trek finished. That's what God, I hope I'm getting my history right, because I researched Shatner years ago, and I'm just going from memory now, so I'm pretty sure he cheated. I know Gene Roddenberry did. So I know Shatner attributes Star Trek to his first marriage failing. Or am I getting him confused with Gene Roddenberry? If I am, I apologise. I should have done a bit more research, but I don't care enough about him to do that. Oh, I'm already 11 minutes. I should stop talking. I was going to do a nice little neat 10-minute video. But yeah. So I'm sorry I have nothing good to say about William Shatner in person. I've met him once. He was an a-hole. I've heard about him being an a-hole a bunch of times. And what can I say? I think that's it. But I mean, I got my autograph. You know, it sits next to Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley and all the other cast. Majel Barrett, I got her as well. I didn't meet her though. The only one I don't have is Grace Lee Whiteley, which I really wish I'd met instead of Shatner. I'd trade her for him any day. And there's been a lot of criticism of William Shatner, and he has been very outspoken on Twitter, and he hasn't always been as woke as people would like him to be. I'm not sure if he's in the wrong with some of that stuff. I think he is some of it, but some of it I think he's quite right, because the SJWs are over the top, and he's criticised them, and he's been right with a lot of it, but a few things about him they've said are kind of right as well. So, you know, nobody's perfect. I don't begrudge him. He does seem to have had some sort of awakening after a lot of people have read him, but I'm still not sure. Someone with the narcissism on his level really, really gets what they are. So I'm not sure he's ever going to really, really, work it out. But I mean, he's 90. I don't think much is going to change. But I don't know much longer we've got him. I like that Captain Kirk, he's still around. I do enjoy that element, the fact that he's still out, he's doing things. I'm proud of him on a career level, entertainment level. I just wish he could be a better person. I've seen him be interviewed about getting what Star Trek means and what it means to fans. And I'm like, was that after I met you? Or is that just something you were doing as a spiel to sell? Was that a pitch? Was that a sales pitch to sell a documentary? Or did you actually have some epiphanies and realise a few things? Because him and George have a huge feud, and George won't speak to him, mostly because I think George is smart enough to know, and I've spoken to George about this, I think he's smart enough to know that Shatner's never going to get it, and it's just a waste of time, and the only benefit Shatner is to him is just to use him, to criticise as an example of something, because there's never going to be there's never going to be a resolution to that. So, yep, I'm done. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Have you had an experience meeting William Shatner? I've heard some people have had good experiences, but they were all somebodies. They weren't just regular members of the public like myself. They were like prominent YouTubers or celebrities. I've never heard just a regular person. I've heard other people women tell bad stories about him talking to their breasts and being a pig and everything. So, yeah. I'm happy to hear other people's versions of meeting him or stories if anyone's got a story they want to share. I'm going to go. Bye.